Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at this time, 7 o'clock. Welcome you board members, and happy birthday.
Thank you, Jim.
John, over here. I won't ask you your age, but congratulations. I will say, though, that you were teaching high school to me more than 40 years ago, so people can make their guesses, I guess.
Thank you.
All right. Gary was going to be here and open in prayer. He's unable to make the meeting, so I'm going to open at this point with the invocation. Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the privilege of being here this evening to be able to convene in open and in freedom to debate issues and to discuss matters concerning the township. Lord, we know that each of us must do our part, and each of those that works with us and works with the township, Lord, does their part, and all together it makes a cohesive whole, and it blesses this community. I just pray you continue to guide us in making wise decisions. Bless our residents, too. These are unpredictable times, and I just pray that you'd be looking after this township from border to border and be blessing our businesses and our residents as they work, our faith community, our churches, our schools, and we just pray a blessing on all of them. Bless this meeting now in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
You join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. As noted already, Gary Valdink is unable to be with us tonight. He did notify me in advance, but we definitely have a quorum. At this time, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved. Support.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The agenda is passed. A rather short one, I might add. Item 6, communication letters and reports that have been received for your information. Item 7, public comments for items on the agenda this evening. Is there anyone here from the public that wishes to address the board at this time? It does, but we'll have, you can catch us on the second one later in the meeting, sure. All right, so seeing none, we will move on to item number 8, the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Discussion? Concern? Anyone? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? And the consent agenda is approved. Item 9, scheduled town hall / open house meeting. This came out of finance, and I think it started in finance with Mr. Botch. So, Michael, if you want to place a motion before the board, and we can discuss that.
Okay, let's see. How do we want to make this motion? I make a motion to schedule a town hall open house meeting, and we will determine the date and time after some discussion, which is recommended by the Finance Committee.
All right. Moved. Is there a second? Support. All right. So the matters on the table before you. I'll say as the one who is in Finance Committee, Michael brought this up, wanting to give the residents a chance to interface with us. They haven't done that for a while in a town hall format. We did do town halls, albeit somewhat sporadically, maybe 4 years ago. We made it an effort one year to try to do them quarterly and to have a topic. We found that the attendance was marginal, and there didn't seem to be a clamoring for it. However, it has been a while, and so I think there was an openness in Finance Committee that perhaps this would be a good thing and an opportunity for people to be able to interface with us in a way that they haven't for a while. Fair enough?
Yep. Yeah, I think the issue we had back in a few years ago when we tried it, it was topics were listed, which I was never in favor of. I want this to be a ask me anything town hall. So residents can ask any questions they want, any topic they want, township related. So we don't want to tell them what we can talk about, but anybody can come, discuss anything they want.
I believe this motion does tie back to one of our goals, right, that we aligned to. So it's a nice tie back to 2023 goals.
Would we provide refreshments, or what are you thinking about? Would it be formal like this, or would we be mixing, or what kind of format would you like to have?
What's your vision?
I was thinking maybe set up chairs in a circle and then just have residents and board members kind of sprinkled in circles. So it's not, I don't like this kind of formal format. I want it to be nice and relaxed. And
how about coffee and refreshments and just stuff like that to help people relax?
Why not?
I think it's definitely in the budget. Yeah. I mean, I would think it'd be pretty inexpensive, and it wouldn't be a violation of taxpayer money as long as it was for the public. So,
like for example, tonight, if anybody wants some of your brownies down there,
Birthday brownies.
they're welcome since you.
Birthday brownies.
Any other thoughts?
I wondered if, and I don't know what we're thinking about as far as timing, but I wondered if the Christmas tree lighting has been scheduled, and if there was a way to kind of make those two coincide, like maybe town hall at 5 and Christmas tree lighting at 6:30, or something like that, where we could get people here and then keep them around for a little bit more festivities. But if other people didn't like that idea, no skin off my back, I don't care at all. But I love the idea of welcoming people in and having more informal dialogue is cool.
How do you feel about having a PowerPoint, the state of the township or something like that, to kind of kick off discussion where people know what's happening and maybe they see photos of the senior center and library, just to stimulate discussion? I'm just throwing out thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say we could see how it goes, and if it's kind of a lack of subject matter, then we could maybe do that kind of thing. And also time-wise, I was thinking probably like a 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, to give people time to get home from work, and then dinner, and then come here.
Any thoughts on how to promote it?
Facebook page. We could promote it on, there's an inform page to go on that. How big do you want it to be?
Well, a while back, someone had an idea about in a park, and it's getting into colder weather, it's not going to work, but actually having hot dogs, having food, and inviting people to come in, and then making that part of it. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but I think for a park, I kind of like doing that. If we want to think of something like this again in the spring or summer, have them come to one of our parks, and we're there to greet them. But when you provide food, it loosens people up.
Along those lines, you could possibly hold it at the senior center.
Yep, we do it at the library, senior center, an outdoor one in the summer when it's nicer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think we made mention, too, of it being 2 times a year potentially, so that's a nice tie-in, do an indoor and outdoor, 2 seasons, break the year up in 2. Mm-hmm. Makes sense to me.
So are we thinking this initial one would be around January, February, or what was your thought when you suggested?
Sooner the better. Okay. But I guess it depends on people's schedules.
Okay. Would you envision the first one being here in this room, or would you want to see it at the senior center?
I think we could start it here and try it, see how it goes. And with that too, if there's a lot of demand and it runs 3 hours on the first one, then maybe we'll want to look at it and say, you know what, twice a year might not be enough. Let's hit this, 4 times a year. And who knows, maybe it won't be that big of a turnout, and we'll say, we'll try that second one, see how it goes. And if they're just not showing up, I don't see a point in meeting just us with,
It's a little bit of what's happened in the past. It's been a little bit of an underwhelming response, and I wouldn't put that all on advertising. It just hasn't been a large turnout. So, yeah, as you say, we can play that by ear. I wouldn't want it to be so freewheeling that it becomes either a gripe session or a particular, like one person has their issue. My water bill last month, and why did, you've got to almost be able to say, look, some of those particular questions might be best addressed to, this particular individual after the meeting is concluded about your specific situation with your water bill, say. But if there's something more township related, you probably have to take hold of that and steer things in a way that impacts the wider township and not someone's upset over their setback on their fence, you know?
Right. Yeah, and I welcome the gripes because it's one of those things that everybody's like, you're doing a great job. Well, that's great, but I like the constructive criticism where it's, here's something you could improve on. That's how we can really make a difference. So I wouldn't mind the gripes. I wouldn't want it to be nonstop gripes. And if there's a question about the water bill, maybe there's 50 other water customers that have the same question. And I guess that brings up the issue. Would we be recording it so that way people would have a chance to view it if they weren't able to make it and look at it and go, oh, that's something I'd like to go to. Yeah, I've got questions I'd like to ask.
Yeah. You know, personally, I wouldn't be in favor of recording it, not because people wouldn't want to watch it necessarily, although we haven't got a whole lot of views. It just leads to perhaps those that are there playing a little bit to the camera. I don't know.
Right. And they could do that at a normal board meeting too.
They can.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is sometimes the counter argument to having is to say, well, every 2 weeks you've got a town hall format in a sense that you can come forward and speak to us for 3 minutes and 3 more minutes toward the end. But I'm not opposed. I mean, let's try it and see if this time we generate more interest and it becomes something positive. So back to, it sounds like there's a general consensus to have a town hall.
I think that's fine. I'd just like to see some structure.
I feel the same way.
You know, my guess, if we don't promote it, you'll have 10. If you promote it, you might have 20, 25. If there's something incredibly controversial out there, then you could pack the place. I don't know of anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there needs to be a framework. Otherwise, we're just...
Explain what you mean, like framework. What would you envision?
I would like to see a little PowerPoint about the state of Georgetown Township. Maybe what Rob has done for us a few months ago, kind of give us the numbers. It's fascinating. I wish more people would have seen that. And it would only take about 15 minutes. I think it would answer a lot of questions. And then we open it up. But then we're kind of celebrating Georgetown Township, and here's where we are. I think it'll come across much, much better, and people will enjoy it more. Rather than starting cold. Okay, what do you want to know?
I agree with that personally. I see Becky nodding. I don't know, Ryan, what's your feeling?
I feel similarly that often the questions, at least that I can foresee coming up in a town hall, like when I have a conversation with a resident, the conversations are often like, is this something that's in the township's purview or is this something that's not? And so if we started with some sort of PowerPoint that highlighted the work that this board does and kind of the areas of the community that we have purview over, and the work that is going on there, then that kind of naturally lends itself to a framework for, you know, this is kind of the scope of the conversation, right? That talking about the construction on 196 is not something that falls within our purview. But when we talk about neighborhood roads and resurfacing, then that would be, and helping people understand just really what is under our purview, because we feel like we know that because we're very civically engaged, clearly, and involved, but I don't know that the average person in the community truly understands where lines get drawn between county things and township things, and township things and school district things, you know, because those lines can feel a little bit fuzzy, so.
I'd encourage people to bring 5 questions rather than just, well, I'm going to sit and listen and see what happens. Fine. But please think about it, 5 things that you'd like to know. And when Rob did his state of the Georgetown Township, it was fascinating. And I think that would be a good thing to start things out with. They've each got maybe 5 questions, and then we build from those 5 questions, and we can have a great discussion. And then I think it's, you know, I tell my students, if you want a successful meeting, feed people. Have something, and things will turn around. You'll see people change. Even if it's bottles of water, I don't care. But I would have something for them to eat. I'd have some type of structure. I'd have a presentation. I'd ask them to bring questions.
Okay. Well, the more specific we are, I think the further along we move this. So we're going to have a town hall. You would prefer it was sooner than later. Is it a Monday evening or is it a Thursday evening or is it Monday at 7 on an off board night? Is that what you had in mind, Michael, when you suggested? Were you thinking a night like tonight at a time like this? On a non-board meeting night, perhaps?
Either or would be good with me. I think if it's a light agenda, we could do it on the same night. Or maybe for the first one, we try a solo one, so they don't have to sit through a meeting. I guess unless we did it before the meeting started. But
if we did it before our meeting at 6 o'clock, I bet you within 20 minutes, a half hour, we'll have everything pretty much taken care of with people. And we got another half hour cushion, and then we can encourage them to stay for our meeting. Personally, I do it on a regular night, and I do it at 6.
I think the first one's going to go longer than an hour. I would think so. But
Ryan, certainly we can. I don't think you're going to have very many people.
Okay.
Yeah, while I would agree, I don't think we'll have many. Is the consensus to have it on the evening of a meeting or to have it on its own evening? And if so, you could just say, you could pick something now and say the first Monday night in December or 7 o'clock, date of the township report, and then sort of open discussion.
I'm okay if that's what you'd like to do.
Like the 5th, December
5th?
December 5th, be the 5th.
Yeah. Okay.
Do we need to formally amend the motion to include those details that we're thinking December 5 and thinking 6:30 or 7 o'clock start to begin with a state of the township presentation, maybe led by Rob, and then a more informal town hall conversation style? Like, how specific does our motion need to be? Should I be amending the motion to include those details?
I don't think it matters.
You just did.
Okay, perfect.
Is that your amendment?
That's my amendment.
Okay, does anyone support that?
Support.
Yep.
All right. Any other discussion about it? Any comments from either Rod or Rob? Hey, you guys aren't remembering we got X or Y that night, or is there any problem with what we're discussing time-wise?
You're talking in this room?
This room, Monday evening, December 5, 7 o'clock. Yeah, okay. All right.
Sounds good.
All right, and more specifically, too, you mentioned giving some sort of an update on the township, which I think that would be a good way to sort of segue. Okay, so it's been amended. Is there any other discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? And it's passed. All right. Not that we don't have enough to do in that month, huh? All right. Item number 10, the 48th Avenue 24-inch water transmission main. I know we have tonight, Joel is here. We've got a gentleman from Pine and Newhoff. Forgive me, I don't remember your name. Ken Bosma. Yeah, Ken Bosma. This is obviously something that the utilities has talked about for a long time. It's been on all of our radars for quite some time because it's going to be a significant project and significant cost, one which we've been thinking about. So I wanted to give the opportunity, because I believe you came to lend some information to those of us who either aren't up to speed with it or don't know the details as well as you would. Would you like to address the board and give us an overview?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. I did a PowerPoint here to give you a quick overview of what we are looking at for the 24-inch transmission main that we've been talking about. So a little bit of X-day demand is the largest volume of water delivered to a system, and that's how water systems are designed. You have average day, which is what everybody uses, but typically your max day demand is going to be in your dry seasons because of sprinkling. So some historical points are in 2019, one of the wettest years you've had, with more 11 million gallons a day is what you used. Okay, now you go back in 2013 and you had a higher demand, and that just happened to be a dry summer. So that's why you see a demand is much higher there in 2013. We've had more demand again this year because of the drier season, but those are the records that we have going forward. So looking at that, we make some projections as to what's going to happen. We've been working on your water reliability study, which is required by the state every 5 years. That gives information back to the state on how well your system is being projected for its demands. And what we have found here is we kind of follow your projections with your growth, and your growth is at about 1.7% growth in your population. So that's how we kind of project your average day water demands. Now, max day demands are about 2.5 times what average day demands are. And then what we do is we push them out. So you can see here for the next 5, 10, 15, and 20 years, you can project that we're going from 19 MGD to 2030 MGD, million gallons a day. This is the same information that I just provided to you. The top line, the blue line, is just kind of giving you your population growth, as you can see. And the squiggly line is your water demand. And you can see it changes based on dried years versus wet years. But on average, it's following your population growth, and that's kind of what we're projecting going forward. This is the same thing. The bottom line here is your average day water use, and then the orange squiggly line is your max day use. Again, you can see that the orange becomes on average about 2.5 times what your average day use is. The projection on the far top in the green is what's peak demand, and that's usually by hour. We just don't get that information in most systems from the way the information is collected. So that's why it's not shown from each year, because you really have to dig in deep to find out what that peak hour demand is. But systems really are looked at max day, and that's what you see in that orange line. So again, you can see continued increase from this year on going forward. What we're seeing here is an example of what's happening at your tanks on Baldwin and 36th Street. What's happening here is this was a week this year, June 19 to 25, and because that's a heavier time of sprinkling, it was a dry season, what's happening is the tanks are being filled. That's when they reach that blue line, and then they start dropping because of demand use. And then they get filled up again during the night. But as you can see, we're dropping down, I think that's almost like close to, the worst case is probably about like 18 feet. Typically, we don't like to see that much drop in those tanks. Those tanks feed a booster station, which is adjacent to it, which basically pumps what's your high pressure district in the northwest part of the township. And those pumps are designed and are in a way that they know what kind of elevation of water they're always going to have. If we draw those tanks down too far, we start messing with those pumps for those stations in the high pressure district. So we want to make sure we kind of keep that bottom slough coming up a little bit, or for sure holding where we're at. So what we have looked at here is if the way your existing system is, you can see, so the top green line is your average day use, okay? The tanks don't fluctuate a lot, and that's more of like a winter type use. The next line is based on today, 2022 max day demand. You can again see how the tanks really go down in the summertime because of sprinkler demands. But generally, they're still staying up near that green line, near the top of where the tank is. What the bottom line is in 2042, 20 years from now, if we don't do anything, what's going to happen is the demand is going to be such that those tank levels drop, even the top part, so far that we can't even begin again to operate not only those pumps at the booster station adjacent to it, but just you're going to see significant pressure changes in your system, which people are not going to be happy with. So what we've been looking at, and this has been quite a history on this, in 2005, the township built a new meter station and built some 24-inch transmission main. You can see there along New Holland Street and then 48th Avenue. That was all done in 2005. So again, in 2008, you had a water reliability study done, and it talked about upsizing the 12-inch main along 48th Avenue, which is what would have continued further north. In 2012, again, the water reliability study was done, and again, it brought up the need for a larger transmission main to go all the way to your tanks and booster station at Baldwin and 36th Avenue. This again was then identified in 2017, and then again in this year is 2022. So this is a project that has been thought about and has been in the works for several years, just has never been able to pull the trigger on that. And it's at that point where we really need to think about pulling the trigger on this project. So what we're looking at, and I know this map is kind of split, but to the left there, it's just showing that the transmission way would continue up 48th Avenue until you get to, and then you jump over to the other side, up to Baldwin, head over east towards your tanks. So the proposed project would be a 24-inch transmission main, that whole route in there. This could be done in 2-3 years time, 2-3 years, different time segments. It doesn't necessarily have to all be built in 1 year. I can tell you we've actually just recently found out that the supply of materials for this particularly sized main is quite a lengthy time. Right now, if we wanted to build a 24-inch main and some of the valves that are in there, that supply chain is requiring almost 36 months before you can actually get the material. So again, the longer things are put off, this is delaying it further and further. What is happening here is this chart here shows what's happening if we had a 24-inch main in there. And then so the first, and I don't have the color of that there, but the green I think is based on a 2025 year with 24-inch transmission main. And then you can see if we still built that main, 2032, it's staying pretty close to that. 2042, it's starting to come down a little bit, the yellow. Again, the red one at the bottom is if we did nothing. If we put the transmission main, it elevates those in the tank and in the system much higher. As you can see, even as far as out to 2042, we're better off with the new transmission main in there. Some overall benefits of this too is, so one of the things we've been talking about is you have a booster station at 8th and Berry Street with a transmission main that goes up A Street. So by building this transmission main, it helps some reliability also on A Street, because if for some reason that main goes down, which could be under the highway there or something like that, then you really are at a loss because you don't have that system reliability. This would add to it by having something on the west side of your township be able to fill. It wouldn't keep up with the system demands as you need, but it would give enough to keep going for a while. Improves water pressure in the system. So as the tanks are higher, obviously you get better pressure in the system. As part of this, we've looked at, too, do we replace any mains as we go along? And we've thought about it and said, we really don't need to replace the mains on 48th Avenue, but there is a main in Baldwin that is asbestos cement, 50 years old, that we would like to replace as we go. And that's from 40th Street, then east to where the booster station is at. So if this project was built, we would transfer over the water services and all that are on there and get rid of that AC pipe at the same time. It's a project you would do eventually anyway. And then finally, this would help get closer to where the booster station operates again for your high pressure district. As we were talking about, those pumps need those, it's designed for that kind of head in that area. And this would get it back. Again, if we don't, you'll see that those pumps won't even be able to operate on their system right now. So I think that's all I got. So if you got any questions for me.
Asbestos concrete. I mean, you hear the word asbestos and you go, what does that mean?
So that's the way they were. There's asbestos in the mains, but there's never really a problem as they remain wet. Sometimes it's a little bit more of an issue if they were to start cutting into them dry. They do want contractors to be aware of that and have the dress appropriately on there. But it's not an issue for the water system itself. It's just more when they are dry and maybe cutting into it at that point. So, yeah.
So saw your dotted line showing along 48th and turning onto Baldwin to the east.
Yep.
If you continued along 48th all the way to Bauer, is there anything in the ground there currently? We have them?
I don't remember.
12 inch, okay. Okay, okay.
Getting back to the asbestos concrete, you said on Baldwin, 40th East. How much, like, when you say east, do you mean all the way down to like Cottonwood?
No, it goes up to the booster station.
To the booster
station. To the booster station, yeah.
That booster station is on...
East of 36.
Oh, so it's a pretty short segment.
Yep.
So to hone in on a cost of something like this, and this is for either one of you gentlemen, but does the engineering work that needs to be done help you fine-tune cost to the township? Will that be a helpful phase to come to more of a price tag, a more definite price tag, or do you know that already?
We gave an estimate to the township as to what that would be.
Yeah, 13.1.
Yeah, for the whole thing there in today's hours. What it would do is, as we said, if you get this design and get going, you can obtain better numbers by putting it out for bids and actually getting a hard number from the bids. The other issue is, like I said, right now there's currently a 36-month supply-demand issue that's a problem for the pipe. So you can get the plans going, can kind of get bids and start getting things in motion. You're probably looking right now, at best, maybe early 24 to start even thinking about putting something in the ground. Might even be a little bit later in the 24 if you were to even start today.
And that's all because of supply chain?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. And we have to get permits, et cetera, too. So there's some things we have to cross drains in a couple places. So we have to get permits from Eagle. We'll have to get some permits from the Road Commission. So some of that process has to be ongoing as well. Yeah.
Does this project need any coordination with road resurfacing?
As we get into Baldwin, we will be in the road there. We're anticipating as we go up 48th Avenue not to be in the road.
Okay.
We're hoping to be in there. We would have to get topography again, which is one of the things, and then make sure we map out where the existing utilities are. When we did a preliminary study based on what we looked at, old drawings and that, we did not think we would have to be in the road there. Yep.
Joel, I want you to be able to add as well your thoughts, if you would. It's a big project.
Yeah, it is a big project, and I've seen the feed coming for quite some time now. I've been making this adjustment on our pump on-off cycle that pumps out of our ground storage into our all-day tanks, and I can see that the need is coming, and the township needs the water, and eventually we'll have issues with whether it's irrigation, drinking ban, or odd even, or something in the future, because we won't be able to replenish the water, or we'll definitely have a lot more calls on low pressure.
Do you foresee that happening before they can get this in the ground in 2024?
I would think probably in the next 5+ years we'll definitely have. Well, depending on.
Yeah.
You can't design how dry the weather is.
Yeah.
Like a big factor in that, but.
Yeah.
I'd say 5+ years, we will probably take some decisions on what the irrigation is doing. Again, 5+ years. I don't know.
Yeah.
Prine and Newhoff, you guys are going to be doing the water rate study coming up? No. That's somebody else? And I wish Gary was here because he's kind of the specialist in developing and utilities and water. If, say, the water study were to come in and recommend that we increase our water rates by 40%, 50%, I know that trajectory for demand keeps climbing. Is that factored in that if we were to raise rates, how that would slow down and maybe plateau for a bit?
The actual water use?
Right.
We don't project that. I don't know if they would do that in the water rates. I suspect they wouldn't. typically, I don't think I would be very surprised your rates would be up 40%. Typically, you're going to see a bump, but most people, after a while, realize it is what it is. I mean, I think the type of area that you have, you're going to have people that are going to continue to want to sprinkle. Yes, there are going to be a few people that are going to say, hey, we don't want to sprinkle. But I think people are proud of their homes and their lots and want to continue to maintain them, and they'll typically sprinkle on that. The only other issue is ever if Wyoming said they couldn't supply us enough water, right? That's only the time where then it becomes an issue for everybody. But, you know, people like the city of Wyoming too wants to make sure you get the water you need. So,
do you know how much the city of Wyoming consumes?
I don't know offhand. I know they're making many improvements right now. They're putting in the third transmission main right now up to 96th Avenue. That's in design right now. You know, they have plans for another intake into Lake Michigan. So they're making some improvements. Yeah.
Because I believe the capacity of the Wyoming treatment plant on the lake shore is 120 million gallons a day.
Yeah.
And I think the peak that they've ever hit so far is 90 million a day. But then wintertime it drops 30, 35 or so. So I just wonder if there's a point where they tell Georgetown, we're capping you at this point. You're not getting more water.
I don't think, at least in my history, Wyoming has never been that way. They've always tried to work with the communities, and, you know, they get your projections of what kind of water use you're looking at, like we just presented here, as well as they do from other communities, and they try to plan for that as well.
So that 18-foot mark you don't want to go below, is that just the whole systolic pressure of that higher up water? Is that what that's from? Is just that water above the 18-foot mark is what
we start going below that, you know, again, you'll feel that in your systems. Anytime we drop further and further, you'll start feeling that pressure loss. Some people that are marginal right now with pressure will really feel it. But the more importantly, like I said, is it really will impact also your booster stations, which is right adjacent to those tanks. That booster station fills your tanks and fills your high pressure system. And those pumps are designed to operate with that type of drop in there, okay? If it gets less than that, that's not where those pumps are designed to operate.
Is it typically the booster stations, is it one motor or pump per, or 2 pumps, 3 pumps?
It can be 2 or 3 pumps. It's never typically one. For one, there's always a backup in case something happens. So there are 2 or 3 pumps in those stations like that. Yep.
And I think it's probably like trying to suck a malted through a straw. You can only pull so much water at one time. But if we could buy more time, could we increase the horsepower of the pumps or the size of the pumps or add a third pump?
You could,
or is it not physically possible?
It's affecting your system upstream of that. So where it comes from New Holland Street to where those booster stations are, if you look at that red line that I said that was going to continue to go down, you'll start feeling 10, 15, 20 pounds difference in pressure. That'll make a significant change on your people, let alone it could affect your ISO rating for your fire, because you have to show that you can get, typically in residential areas, about 1,500 gallons a minute for 2 hours at 20 PSI. So if you can't maintain that kind of flow at 20 PSI, it'll affect your ISO rating as well. And that'll change your insurance rates for your corporations and industries and all that. Yeah.
And that would be because if you add an extra pump, it would be pulling so much water, it would affect other areas?
Yes.
Because the idea is to fill that tank as quickly as possible.
Correct. Yep.
And our current average hydrant pressure in the township right now, 70, 100?
Generally, good pressure in the line is going to be anywhere between 50 and 70 pounds. But you're going to have areas, it depends where the elevations are. You could be running near 35, which is about the bottom where you want to be. You have some areas that you could be running near 90 pounds. So
we don't have any areas below 50 though, do we?
Oh, yeah.
Joel, is there anything else that you'd want us to know as board members on this topic?
When I mentioned about, we made adjustments, well, that booster pump that fills up the elevator tank, and my we are seeing that we will be adding a third pump. We'll need to add a third pump probably within 10 years. And right now we are having the second pump coming on quite regularly as the demand, we also touched on about, I want to say 80-90% of homes now being built all have irrigation systems. And we see that at typically 5 a.m., but it just shoots right on down and then the second pump comes on. We'll see that third pump being added to our booster station that fills our elevators. But we need to fill our ground storage. What's critical to keep those pumps so they can pump them. And overall pressure out the system.
Well, I don't know if that's the last question. You're here if there are more, but I wanted to look to we've got two of you from utilities tonight. Gary's not here, but any thoughts from those of you who've been talking about this over and over at previous meetings?
Joel's been very diligent about it and has been very detailed at our meetings, and it's been right on top of this. So feel very, very comfortable that this is the direction we need to go.
Mm-hmm. Same thing. It became, obviously this was something that we're looking initially 5 to 10 years out, but being that there is issues with supply chain as well as just the possibility of having negative outcomes and having issues with homeowners, I think now is time to at least get the ball rolling, at least for the engineering portion.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Other board members?
I just had a question on, can you guys ground me in where in the budget this is? I see, I'm on the water and sewer department, page 32 of 33. Where does this come out of, or what's the strategy behind the funding of it?
Well, it's going to be several years, so it'll come out of our fund balance in water sewer, which sits $12, $13, $14 million. So it'll be over a course of years that we pay for this $13 million project. In the meantime, we'll be replenishing the water sewer fund balance. So we're in a fortunate position, as Georgetown has been for years, that we won't have to borrow to pay for this project. So in the budget, I think we just have engineering for next year.
So to hear that that's in the budget and to hear Ryan's suggestion out of committee that perhaps we look at the engineering phase of things, would it make sense to approve that initial phase or vote on that this evening and leave the remainder for the moment while that's being undertaken? Is that what I hear?
Yeah, for the most part. Yep. I mean, just the engineering portion is going to be 6 to 9 months or so, based on what I read in there. So I mean, just right there, and just pulling permits and everything. I mean, you're looking at least a year process right there.
So phase one.
Mm-hmm. Something that we have to do anyways. I mean, for that area.
Right. Right. And when you talk about the cost, I mean, they're not all sitting there now. I mean, we budget, we plan, and so on, but we're planning on that coming in over time. We could use some financial help in that respect if it were available.
Yes.
Wherever there might be that opportunity. It would be very, very necessary and useful to us for a project of this magnitude. Mm-hmm. Well, we'll have to make diligent work of that, see what can be done. Is there a motion then to be made at this point? Again, gentlemen, I appreciate your input. I'm sure you've barely scratched the surface with us, but probably as much as we apparently need to know at this juncture. So it's been years in the making.
Yeah, I would just make one point that I think if we were to move forward on this project, it's pretty much guaranteeing no outside funding coming in via grant or any other method.
Therefore, I think we should probably ground it in just a planning, because that's not a committal to do, but to to figure out what exactly engineering-wise has to be done, and probably can hone in more specifically on what the dollars are that need to be spent. But I'm not on utilities.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think that would be my question too, but I think just doing the engineering process, nothing's going in the ground yet. Nothing's really, I mean, I guess that won't, in my eyes, it won't hinder us from getting into any type of funding or grant work. But I don't know enough about that.
It might potentially enhance in terms of being able to say, look, we have specifics, and these aren't guesstimates. These are, these are pretty hard numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks for input, conversation on the board. Is there a motion anyone wishes to place before the board at this time? If not, I can make one.
Go ahead.
No? All right. So I motion that we authorize the superintendent to, rather than, as maybe was put in the agenda, to initiate the engineering phase of the new 24-inch transmission main. And the rest of the verbiage I wouldn't necessarily play with, but I think I would just tweak that first line there to say, rather than to install, but to initiate the engineering phase of the new 24-inch transmission main, et cetera.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Mm-hmm. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
All right, that's carried. Item 11, sir. We're now at the second public comment period. And also you're welcome if you wish to step forward and address the board. All right.
47 years in the township. I like it here. But I have a problem with a neighbor.
Could you, real quickly, just give us your name and street? Yeah.
Ed Polkowski.
Okay.
8652 Astro Drive. It's in Berger Estates. And these kind of problems have been going on for years. There's always one neighbor that doesn't want to take care of things. And the neighbor that I have, 8611 Beretta, has been written up numerous times by me back when I did put my name and address and phone number on the form. After a long summer of that, I went to Dick Kennedy a couple times. Dick took him to court. The guy gets fined $100, and that very afternoon, he pulls up, parks in front of my house, and walks up the driveway. Wants to know if I'm Ed, and did I write a complaint about him? And I said, yeah. So we had about a 45-minute tense conversation about property values and appearance of the home and how to take care of things and how he didn't like things about the township. And there were some things I said I probably don't like about the township too. You can't please everybody, but, maybe he should take a look at improving the value of his home and selling it and getting a place more appropriate for the way he wanted to live. Ultimately, he sold and left. He was replaced by a guy who came in and bought a rundown house and has the same philosophy. And he's got a junk pile growing in front and on the side of the garage. It's a corner lot. And it's just been continuous, probably, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years. It's somewhere in that neighborhood. So anyway, to back up, before this guy got in there, I went to Dan Carlson about that guy coming up my driveway. And he said he'd investigate, which he did. He found out it came out in court that my name was given out. So when he called me back and told me that, I said, that's no good. I mean, somebody could get hurt. Township could get sued. You can't be giving that out when you're fining people. I'm not getting the $100. The township got the money. But I'm like an advisor to the township. The board made that rule that he got fined for. And I don't even know what exactly that it was. I would assume something with junk. There's tires, scrap metal, lumber, which is what's out there now. And there's also a 6-foot fence out there now. He thinks that he can put a 6-foot fence in front of his garage to shield that from one street. So what I really want to see done is I'd like that complaint process to be like one of these agenda items. I'd like that rediscussed because that policy got changed, I believe, by this board in the last year or two, where now I'm required to put my name, address, and phone number on that form again, and it's public information. Now, I talked to Code Enforcement Iraqi a few years ago when this was not the policy, and he assured me very strongly that under lock and key, no one would ever get my identity. And yet this board somehow sees fit to change that back to public knowledge. So I don't personally think I should be identified as a complainant. I think that the complainant should be the board, because they made that rule. And their representative, the enforcement officer, should go to the court, if that's where it ends up, and say, look, I'm here on behalf of the board. The board feels violated. They're complaining about this person not adhering to their rules. And so that's kind of where I'm at. So now I currently don't write any complaints about the guy. I have talked to these two guys, been very helpful. I've talked to the people at the office, but I've talked to Victor. But what are you going to do? I mean, this goes on throughout the township, maybe 1 out of 25 houses, I don't know. But when somebody, it was previously mentioned how people like to water their lawn here. I don't think that lawn's seen any water in years. It's all weeds. It used to be one of the nicest lawns and nicest homes in the area when I moved there like 25 years ago. And 2 consecutive owners now have deteriorated to where it looks like a ghetto house. And I did mention that. I wrote an email to all of you. I'm Ed's Red Cars. I didn't sign it. I wanted to see who'd get back to me. None of you did. Rod did. Sent me an email. I talked to him on the phone about it. So, you know, here I'm giving out my identity tonight, but I don't want you calling the guy up at 8611 Beretta. I'd like you, one of you or all of you, to ride by there and maybe give your code enforcement guy a hint. Now, I don't understand completely what enforcement by complaint is, but it kind of seems like it's not quite worded right to me. I mean, shouldn't the code enforcement guy try and enforce the rules made by the board? Shouldn't that be part of his job? I mean, does he have to have a prod by a resident? I mean, so that's one of the issues there, and I would like to see increased amount of enforcement if you don't have enough people. I mean, it can't be that expensive. He's not working that many hours. He's not a full-time employee, I don't think. So, you know, maybe a special category of a new residential enforcement guy. You want the township to be beautiful, which it is, but the residential areas sometimes have places that aren't beautiful. They have places that are downright derelict. And I could give you more addresses, but I'm only giving you the one close to me. So that's my issue tonight. Now, I was going to start with, I was at that August planning meeting. I was very pleased with all of you, the way you all conducted yourself. The issues discussed were great. I liked hearing all of that. And when I left, I felt really good about the township board and the township. So I kind of hate coming back with a bad story, but, you know, that meeting was a good one for me. I felt really good after I left. So thank you all for doing the job you do.
Yeah. Thank you, Ed.
Yep, not an easy job to do.
Yeah, thank you. And I will say I think Rich does a good job as our code enforcer, and that vote that you talk about was a split vote, and so if the board were ever to revisit that rule, it would have to come back onto the agenda as an agenda item. It's certainly not going to be addressed at this moment, but it's something that you're trying to put back on our radar and to say
that's what I would be requesting.
Okay.
You need to put it
duly
on.
Noted. Duly noted.
And
Yep.
to be honest with you, I'd like to see that be a unanimous vote. 4-3. Mm-hmm. Come on, you people all live in the same township. You should all have somewhat similar view and work out something that you can get a 7-0 to protect the township residents from this kind of residence.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Hearing none, we will close the second public comment period. Discussion and general information among the board. Anybody wish to bring anything up for discussion?
I just have a quick question, or maybe Rob or Rod, if you could provide just a little update on the survey results, and if we're going to have sort of like a recap that we could even share out to the public, maybe percentages, not obviously names, but any kind of update there?
Yeah, Sean, who's been working on the input, is wrapping that up, is doing final checks, I believe, today.
Okay.
So I would expect we can have that out
by the next
tomorrow or Wednesday.
Okay. And then do we want to put that on the agenda and kind of have a presentation of it in the next meeting? Just a thought. I don't know if that's a moment.
That's up to you guys.
Okay. Well, It's in the air.
Yeah.
I like the idea of reviewing it. Do we know how many total have come in?
2,100-ish.
Does that mean that I won Price is Right?
I think I'm closest. Did you go over?
All right.
I have no idea what I even guessed, but
I would think we'd run it through services first. and then send it to the board, but whatever you think.
I would just ask that once it's compiled, it gets emailed to all the board tomorrow or whenever.
Sure.
Okay.
Email out to the board, and then you guys can take it up for discussion and services, and it could come up, on the board agenda thereafter. Good to know about that. And Kirsten, I don't know if this is your last meeting or not, but I want to just thank you for your service. I'm trying to think. I don't know how that works because 2 weeks from now we'd be beyond the date of the.
Let's see. I think you have me for one more week, but
okay.
You can
I don't want to
praise me
prematurely.
twice if you want.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to thank you for your service. I really do.
Course.
So.
Is the next one? We don't have one on the 7th.
The transition.
Okay. That's what I was.
Do we have a meeting on the 7th?
Okay.
We have 2 scheduled right now for November. 14th and 20th.
Anyone else? I can say I went to a meeting of supervisors for Ottawa County. We do that periodically. This time we met out in Spring Lake with John Nash, who's been a Spring Lake Township supervisor for quite some time. And it's just always interesting to me. I always come away having learned something, but also hearing about some of the unique situations that other townships face, some of which are similar and some of which are entirely different. I know Jamestown has a vote coming up that their supervisor talked about with their library that was, pretty unique. Had a number of supervisors talk about groundwater in Ottawa County and running low and really facing some real issues with, one of the supervisors, the one for Grand Haven, said, my pond in my backyard is down 4 feet. He especially wanted to talk about a golf course that was nearby that waters no matter what. But it's interesting. Everybody's got things that they're dealing with, and we try to collaborate a little bit. And I always walk away feeling encouraged. So we've got some good leaders and people that really care about this county.
Jim, I did a bike ride along the Grand River in the new section that was done really close to the Veterans Plaza down there. They just finished putting a road out, and they've got parking down there. But the bridge work they did, it's like artwork. It is so beautiful. And they were able to pay for much of this through the gas oil drilling, which has paid for much of the development along the river. But it is well beyond my expectations. It is beautiful. And you're only talking a few hundred yards from our Veterans Plaza that this is all located. It's just back there. You can get at it off of Cottonwood and behind the water treatment plant. You get a chance to walk there with your family, you'll be blown away. It's that beautiful.
I'm going to do that. Yeah. Huh. We say oil and gas money from the lands that the county acquired that had the wells on them?
No, it's from the state funds.
Got it. Okay.
And so whoever is in charge of this, that is behind the development from Grand Haven all the way out here, he's incredibly talented. I think his people skills have to be awesome, that he's able to get people to donate land and so forth. And so this is going to be a huge plus for us. You've got Millennial Park up here, but then to be able to take a bike and go all the way down to Grand Haven, I think we're getting close to that. It's pretty close. But our section is incredibly beautiful.
Yeah, I think we should make a point of going down there. In our park, there at the turn of Cottonwood and Fillmore, is yet to come too. 300-400 acres.
Yeah. Yeah.
County, but yeah.
What do you think in the future about doing a kayak with Granville again, where we'd have our officials in Granville go from Granville down to one of our parks?
You set it up, and those who want to join, and I may be one of them. So.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else?
I'll have to go after my pickleball game, so that'll be great.
Okay.
Okay. Hearing no one else.
I was going to say, did we chip in on that trail expansion?
Yes, that's what we're paying, Rod.
Our initial, or our commitment was, what, 900 grand? Yep. So we did get a bill for this latest section.
Not yet, but we were notified that one is coming.
Right. Do we know how much?
450.
450. So we bought that. And we also bought land to let the trail go through, correct?
No.
Everybody sold it willingly?
We bought land years ago, for future use, that they put the trail across. I don't think it was specifically for this project.
For the Greenway Trail. So we did pay for that. Was there something else we were going to give superintendent? We're going to vote on permission to discuss or to reach out for summer tax bills. I forget how we left that in finance. Sorry, I was thinking it was going to be on here. We were waiting for approval to move forward.
Yep, that'll be the next one.
So, Jim, here's an updated map of what's been done in the township. So this section right here is just about complete. That's from the water treatment plant, and then it comes out to Cottonwood. And this is all done down Cottonwood and 10th. And then this stretch was just done, which if you go into Grand Ravine, you can now go from the lodge all the way down to Grand River Park.
Awesome. Awesome. That bend area is going to be nice.
It is.
Really nice.
The dotted area, I tried to take on my bike, and it's not done. I don't want to tell you what happened.
The mountain bike?
But when it's done, it'll be beautiful, but it is not done yet.
Mm.
We camped down there at the campground this fall, which seems really weird to haul our RV
It's a nice one.
to the campground in Jenison, but we wanted another weekend in our camper, but had commitments, soccer and cheer and stuff like that in town, and it was so lovely, and went wandering up the river right around there, and it was really nice.
It is nice. You don't feel like you're in Jenison, you know?
No.
Yeah.
You totally forget you're in Jenison.
Yeah. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support. All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
All right, we are adjourned.
There's birthday brownies. Please help yourself.
Thank you.